I was never going to be perfect enough for an industry that defines perfection from the outside in. Because I, like you, possess a wonderfully unique and diverse physique. Did you know that the plus-size fashion industry actually starts at a US size 8? And it goes up to a US size 16. So basically what I'm saying is that the majority of this room right now is considered plus size. How does that make you feel to be labeled?
Hey guys, how's it going? You good? I'm good. Welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about this interesting phenomenon that the internet have been showing me recently, where people are critiquing whether fashion looks and trends are trends because they're cute or because they are worn by people who are cute and conventionally attractive and skinny, and as a result critiquing the harassment or bullying or backlash that happens to people who don't look like that when they try said trends. A lot of this has happened on TikTok, which I unfortunately am not, but obviously anything on TikTok seeps down to Instagram, seeps down to Twitter, etc., and makes its way down to the old people. Other times it's also on sites like Pinterest, where lookbooks are very popular and people go there for style inspiration and pictures, and that usually results in that thing where you're seeing people wearing things that you like but none of them look like you, and you think, is it worth a try or am I just setting up myself for failure? Because a lot of times you will be scrolling and there will be a very specific body type. It's really hard not to notice. I mean, if you don't notice, it's usually because you look like that, so you don't care, or you are so brainwashed that you think that is normal. You know, it's normal for us to see people like that in the media. Of course, no one who looks like me would be in the media unless I seek it out. These looks with the most likes, the most shares, the most pins, whatever, are definitely cute, right? They're definitely not basic, right? It's not just a girl in a t-shirt and jeans and the real accessory is her abs or her thigh gap, right? But what is skinny anyway? I mean, body ideals and body types are different based on different demographics, different cultures, different times in history, and it's all very objective. Or is it subjective? I never know which word to use. For instance, a YouTuber who made a video about this where she was basically trying all these trends by skinny creators and skinny lookbooks, was critiquing them for only being suitable for skinny people. But then when I looked at her, she looked skinny, and her body type, while it wasn't in the necessarily tall water glass, hourglass type, was very slender. To some degree, I looked at her and I was kind of like, I kind of look like that, and I've never thought of myself as fat. I am not. So neither is she. So why is she saying that? And a lot of people in the comments expressed insecurity by the fact that she'd called herself fat, meaning that if a person who is a size UK 8 calls themselves fat, what about me, a size 24? Or what about me, a size XYZ? And then I had to ask myself, why is it that when I saw her, my first instinct was to distance her and subsequently distance myself from fatness? Why was that my first thought? Why didn't I take the time to first listen to what she was talking about? Because the points she was raising were still valid.
First of all, let's not all forget the tweet that went viral, like what, I think it was a couple months ago, where people were making fun of these two people who was wearing vintage shirt and I think like mom jean shorts, something like that. But they were making fun of them because they were fat, but this is the exact same thing. This is fashion anyways.
For a lot of us, there is this intrinsic need to distance ourselves from fatness and how we see fat people treated in society and how we have sometimes treated people of that size in society, and we don't want to experience that. So of course there's the need to like, it's not me, which is really, really bad. There is a taught disdain for the natural fullness of bodies that people will just have built inside them and put inside them from such a young age. And even now, when curvier bodies in the mainstream media are being embraced, they still are vilified for things like cellulite, stretch marks, rolls. Bodies that don't have that may in some cases even be surgically enhanced, or you're just lucky enough to not have any of those flaws, are then given the green light. So when someone carrying those negative features tries the same trends as the skinny folk on the internet, and they're not met with the same praise. There's this thing that happens in media and in real life that when a fat person is shown, people don't want to focus on just their clothes or just the content of their character or what they're saying or their personality. People project assumed narratives onto your body that are not at all interested in the truth of your body, whatever that truth may be. And these abusive remarks are sugar-coated in, oh, I'm just very concerned about their health. I'm just looking out for their health. It's very unhealthy to look like that. But those carrying narratives never translate into actual action, like discussions about food deserts and why fast food companies and fast food chains are way more accessible than fruit and veg, and the big profits of these big fast food companies, then how they get to become billionaires while destroying poorer communities and the environment. That is just one example of the types of discussions that people would and should be having if their real concern was the health of the people they criticized for their size. Skinniness is sold as this sort of health ideal, and in reality it's not the case most of the time. People live stringently and starve themselves, and all these dieting companies make money off of selling the idea that one day you could look like this person or like this person, and for what? There's always a profit to be made in the world of insecurity, and a lot of companies have really mastered that. Brandy Melville, for example, is a fashion company targeted towards teens and people in their early 20s that makes clothes marketed as one size fits all, when in reality they go from a size 0 all the way to a size 2. I've never worn a size 2 anything in my life. The company is owned by 2 old white dudes and yeah, it's totally normal that these old men are projecting insecurity onto young girls and dictating the beauty standard for women and destroying self-esteem. And sure, it's very easy to say, well, just don't buy anything from them. Don't be such a drama queen, it's fine. The thing is, you are not an insecure teenager seeing all their other friends buying from this company, and maybe you don't fit in the clothes and suddenly you're not in the club. You're missing out. Or maybe you did once fit into the clothes and now they don't fit because of puberty or whatever, and now you're starting to think something's wrong with you, and you spend an entire life with an eating disorder trying to diet and fit into this standard. Even when we get down to the subject of, okay, are Brandy Melville clothes actually cute? I tend to disagree. I mean, they're not ugly, but they're not like, oh my god, revolutionary fashion trends, Brandy Melville. The entire appeal of the brand stands in its exclusivity. The fact that if you are wearing or own Brandy Melville, it means that you are between the very wide size ranges of 0 to 2, and also that you can afford it because the clothes just happen to be very pricey, and don't even get me started on the resale prices of those clothes. But even companies that cater for most sizes, which is most companies, will still have a majority of their models being conventionally attractive, fair, Eurocentric features, yada yada. And it's only in recent examples with the decline of Victoria's Secret and the rise of Fenty where we see that the public wants their bodies represented, and if companies want to make dollar, then the idealized Barbie body has to go. It is worth noting, however, that body positive movements that are meant to curb things like fatphobia are often co-opted by those less oppressed. Like, if you look up plus size models, most of them that will come up will be white or have Eurocentric features or just fair, and that is still living up to some sort of a beauty standard. So it's like, okay, fine, maybe you're not skinny, but at least can you be this, or can you tick this box? You can't just be none of the above. We're not accepting that as basically the vibe. Fatphobia is way more intensely experienced by Black women and women of color. The generalizations of fat people being gluttonous, unproductive, and unrestrained are already projected onto Black people, so being Black and fat is just like compounded discrimination. The idea that Black people, specifically Black women, are to blame for being fat goes back as far as racist pseudoscience claiming Black people couldn't control their animal appetites. that is so difficult to read?
So I think there's a number of different reasons why whenever Lizzo does something, she seems to be talked about a lot. And I think one of those reasons deal with her size. The other reason deals with her race, and then how she carries herself. Lizzo is not what society would typically think a fat Black woman should be. She does what she wants, how she wants to do it. And when you have an identity or identities that have been stigmatized, I think that stereotypes hit you a lot harder. And so she is constantly being critiqued and looked at as a representation of a whole and judged on that matter by society or the standards that society puts in place for people who look like Lizzo.
Because unlike race, being fat is discussed as this thing that is a person's own personal choice and it's your fault you look like that. There is still a denial that fat phobia is a thing, and a denial for even the slightest of sympathies. So yeah, fat jokes are still written into scripts, and people can still openly discriminate against fat people in dating and say it's just a preference, and fat people are still denied jobs because, again, oh, it's going to impede your ability to do the work, and it's not necessarily classed as people can't contest if they're fired over those grounds, etc. And it's just the whole thing that might seem very shallow on the surface but impacts a lot of aspects of people's lives. I wanted to end this on a lighter note, but I feel like I can't, because unfortunately, even 14, 20, however many minutes after I finish this, we will still live in a society where appearances are the first thing people care about, and women will be subject to loads of scrutiny over how they look and how they project themselves, yada yada, and no one is just letting anyone have a good time. I feel like growing up there's a lot of unlearning to do regarding all the isms and the phobias and the biased opinions and the BS formed on all this baseless pseudoscience and you get into your 20s or whatever, and you just have to sit down and decide whether you want to unpack all those suitcases of nonsense BS and start to unlearn all this negative stuff, or you can perpetuate it and continue to enact violence on other people unknowingly by maintaining these biases. And fat phobia is one of them, and it's a very difficult one as well, because it's very easy to just like slide down into it, you know, like you could be all like, oh yay, body positivity, yada yada, but then someone you dislike who is very dislikable, like Trump, say, you know, gets hurled loads of fat jokes, and when it's him we can laugh, right? But also, can we though? Because there are some people who may not necessarily be as terrible for the world as him who still have those same physical traits. So really, should we still be in this mode of making fun of people for how they look anyway? Is that still supposed to be a thing? Am I being too sensitive? It's a whole thing. But I hope this video is a little short window into discussion. I always like having discussions in the comment section and seeing what other people think, other people's experiences, so please feel free to share that. As always, there's going to be a few articles in the description that I think are interesting, that I think can act as further reading after this, because of course I am not a sole source of knowledge. Please do not use me as a sole source of knowledge. That is very dangerous. That is a very dangerous game to play. If you've watched up to this point, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate you for that. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and I will see you next time. Bye.